A very good afternoon to everybody. We have almost the meet room is almost full with 210 participants. There are a lot many people on YouTube and Facebook also. We welcome you, all of you, in this final session of our international webinar, the very important session that is the plenary session of this webinar on English language teaching and technology here. We have with us our plenary speakers already ready there to speak, but before we ask them to announce anything, I would like to just share a few things here. I'm sharing my screen to just have a display about our webinar website. As you all know that we time and again have informed you to keep a watch on the webinar website for all the latest updates. We are almost now in the last one, but we will have a lot of post-webinar procedures to be followed about certification and feedback and other things. So let me give a kind of a reminder to all the participants here. This is our slide. When you go to ELT and technology, you will find several things there. I would again like to show you this page, that is the match page, where we have almost participation from 20 different countries who participated, and many of them presented their papers also. We have a good number of people from India, almost pan-India presence we have got, and lot many people from almost all the states of India have participated. Most of you are present right now also in this. This is the webinar room from where most of you have connected. In case if anybody is asking that you are not able to join here, there is live streaming facilities which are made available here. So on both YouTube and Facebook, you can see the live streaming things going on. You can scroll down to the last one, plenary session, and on YouTube and Facebook, you can attend the live session here. This page is very important for all of you because those are paid presentations. If you want a part of your video clippings, you can get it from here. You can download that video from this one. This is the most important page, the feedback form page, wherein you will also get details about certificate. As we announced earlier, those who are presenting papers, they will get a certificate of paper presentation. But if those who are participating, if you want a participation certificate, then we have several conditions here, which are mentioned on this page also. You have to mandatorily give a feedback form. Along with that, you have to give one online test also. The test as well as feedback form will be made available at 9 o'clock tonight, Indian time. 9 p.m. Indian time tonight, the form will be made available. It will be active for 48 hours. So you can give the test and feedback within coming 48 hours, but it will be made available at 9 p.m. So almost after 3 hours of our plenary session, we'll make it live. There, all the things are necessary if you want to get the participation certificate. We are going to have a live poll after third presentation. After third one, the links will be given to you in the live also, but here also we have put the link. Menti.com is the website, and the code is 326732. You can start giving your responses if you want to, but the result we will see at the end of the plenary sessions there. And these are our resource persons. First to come will be Vance Stevens, joining us from Malaysia. And I know you might have already gone through the profiles and the resources submitted by all three of them. Vance Stevens, what is he going to speak about? He has already given it in advance. The abstract slides also are made available online. If we'll click on this page, resources, ELT and technology page, and if you go down to resources, you will find this page here where the resources are already given. It will be updated also. Vance Stevens, what is going to speak about, his URLs are made available here. Anya Lian has also shared some of the articles about which she is going to speak here. And Heike Philip is going to conduct this live poll, which also is being made available here. So I hope we all are set to listen our plenary speakers. I would request Vance Stevens, first of all, to share some interesting views on English language teaching and technology, some practical strategies, and to combat with the kind of a remote and online teaching. Vance, over to you.
Thank you. It seems that my my screen is doing something funny, and I don't see the present where I am. Let's see. Oh, something is getting covered up with it. I'm very sorry about that.
No, one thing you can do, Vance, you just kill your Chrome tab, or
this is a window.
Windows you are working on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So again, if you restart the Windows,
restart the Chrome tab, which will take me out. Sorry, that will take me out of the chat.
I think you can restore all the pages. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh? Shall I exit and come back?
Yeah, exit and come back. Yeah.
Okay. I'll see if I can do that. Problem is, I don't. It's so bad that I don't even have an X or anything at the top.
That was the problem. We also face that problem. So I think there is some.
I see. I see. Okay. So let me see. I'm trying to see how to kill it. Maybe I should take away all of Chrome. Let me see if I can that gets rid of my presentation. But unfortunately, this window is still left. Okay.
Control Alt Delete.
Oh, I know.
Delete, and you can kill the entire Chrome tab.
Yes. Okay. I'm trying. Okay. Close window. Okay, I've got it. Oh, now I've got it. Yeah. Seems to have.
It's gone. Yeah. By the time Vance joins us back, let me briefly read his profile. He lives in Penang, Malaysia, and has produced over 465 podcast episodes since 2010. And all the things are made available on learningtogether.net. Is over 150 publications, many available in full text at vancestevens.com/papers, deal with students using computers to learn languages and teachers learning to teach using technology by engaging in communities of practice and in participatory cultures. He facilitates online teacher professional development through numerous communities of practice. He has helped coordinate TESOL, CALL, IS Electronic Village Online EVO since 2003. Most of the things are made available on pbworks.com and has co-moderated EVO Minecraft MOOC for the past 6 years, made available on minecraftmooc.org. He was recently awarded 2019 CALL Research Conference Lifetime Achievement Award. So for almost last 2 decades, Vance Stevens is contributing in a very significant way in online learning, professional developments of teachers, and wonderful platforms he is working on. The links which are given to you, if you will go through those links, you will find that every day, almost every day, he is conducting some webinars and writing a lot about all those webinars, pre-writing of webinars, post writing of webinars and a tremendous work Vance is doing. But everything is very valuable. We learn a lot by reading the pre-conference writings, the post-conference writings from Vance's blog. So those who are planning in future to have any kinds of webinars or online things, what kinds of pre-webinar preparations one needs to do, what kinds of post-webinar activities we need to do. Vance is one of the very significant example for that. I hope Vance is online again, and we can again ask Vance to come on the screen if his presentation is ready. Vance, are you there?
Sorry, I got my mic back on. Okay. Well, you did a very good job. This is Learning Together episode 470. I was listening to that. Somehow it's not, it looks like this is going to take over my screen, but actually I do have it on the, I have it on the stream over here, so I'll be able to see. So I was unable to get that split screen thing back again, but that's okay. So anyway, thank you very much for that introduction. How long do I have to talk?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay. All right, we'll try to
we can have some questions for 10 minutes after your talk, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So let's see, I have, present now, here we go. Present, I think that's what it was, a Chrome tab, okay. Yes, that's probably what it was. Okay. It should be presenting now, and maybe that's what it needs to do. Yes, that actually gives me the split screen. Okay, wow, having to cut everything off and bring it back again. Well, that's how you do it. You know, you just keep trying until things work. So
sorry, Vance, just a minute. Sorry to interfere. Let me tell to the audience that Vance is working on Zoom platform. I think this was the first time that we did a rehearsal earlier on the Meet platform. So we're trying out whether we can split screen or not. And it is good to see, I think, that he is successfully able to do splitting the screen to see the audience as well as the slides there. Yeah. Vance, please. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard to get back. But anyway, it had to be done in a certain order. But anyway, okay, so I'm presenting, and you can see my screen. Yes, I see it here on the feed. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about thinking from, well, actually, it's from Thinking Small, because this is something I was presenting last year a lot on. Small means social media assisted language learning, as opposed to CAL, computer assisted language learning. So to Talon. Talon is teaching and learning in isolation. Now, this is kind of what I'm into now. So Talon is something that is learningtogether.net is an umbrella for Talon, but I'll talk more about Talon later. But anyway, this is also Talon is where we're organizing people like Dilip, for example, Dr. Barad. He volunteered to do a presentation on in Talon, and we'll show you later how everyone sees that sort of thing. So, by the way, very important. Okay, so you can follow these slides. You can get the slides yourself on your own device, and you can follow them. And also, you can get the full text, because when I make a presentation, I always start with a full text. And so it has a tiny URL. Tiny URL gives you a mnemonic. The mnemonic is Vance 2020 India, or it could be India 2020 Vance. One of those gets you to the slides, and the other one gets you to the full text. I suggest you have a look at both of those and follow them along, because all the links in the slides are all working. But if you go to one, there's a link at the top of that to send you to the other. Okay, so maybe someone could put that in the text chat. So it's tinyurl.com/Vance 2020 India, or the other way works as well, India 2020 Vance. Okay, I'm not watching the chat. So, okay, anyway, just to start with early social media, I went back and looked up the first instances I could find of social media, and this happens to be a painting from a cave in India somewhere, and it's got pictures of people, I don't know, riding elephants or horses, or herding elephants and horses, or hunting them. I'm not really sure. But anyway, it strikes me as being a kind of a way for people to communicate to other people through a media. And here's another kind of social media. I don't know if you recognize this one. This is a schematic from an American football game. And it's also kind of similar to the previous one because it shows how people should organize themselves and what they should do. By the way, I got this from Wikipedia. All the images I use in my slides, I'm careful that it's okay for me to use them. They're not copyrighted. So it suggests that people are using this kind of schematic for coming together to accomplish tasks. And then in searching for these images, I came upon this one. It's from the blog post that you see down there. I didn't actually read the post, but I just, this is interesting. Here's somebody on a computer. Is exactly what I'm talking about. He's either spewing out cave paintings or he's trying to get the genie back in the bottle. I'm not really sure. But in any event, that was a nice image. So I thought that kind of brought us back to the kinds of social media we're talking about now. So in the beginning, we had cave paintings and American football games, etc. Nearer the beginning, in the 1970s, I started using computers myself. And this is, if you're following the slides, you can click on that link and you can actually read this article that I wrote in 1981 because I had been put in charge of developing a CAL facility for the University of Petroleum and Minerals in Saudi Arabia, where I was working at the time. And we were using, back at that time, well, some people were using these things. I don't know if you recognize Spirit copiers. Spirit, it's too bad. Often I like to interact with people in my presentations. But anyway, a Spirit copier is a device where you write on a special kind of paper, and then you send it through the Spirit copier, and the Spirit smells like alcohol. It really smells really nice, or, it's petroleum fumes or something like that. Anyway, but it produces this little thing like you see on the right, that's the way, basically, before photocopiers, before computers, that's the way we used to communicate with our classes. So at the time I wrote that article I showed you a moment ago, I was working on a DEC mainframe computer. This isn't actually a picture of the exact one I was using in 1979, but it's very similar to the one that I was using. That's a story in itself. But in the 1970s, 1977, I think Apple II was put on the market, and it was the computer that brought personal computing to everyone. I bought one in 1981. I'd moved to Hawaii to do my MA. And my computer actually looked very much like that, except that I used a TV screen for a monitor. I liked to, I could touch type, and I used to type my papers and watch football games. That's where the football schematic comes from. So I was a football fan back at the time. And anyway, so it was nice to have that option of, you don't actually have, you can be watching television on your screen. It worked that way. The Apple II was a beautiful thing. It was designed mostly by Steve Wozniak, who was a hacker, and he designed it so you could get in and work at the innards, and you could tweak things around them. When Stephen Jobs took over the company, he went the opposite direction. Anyway, so that's just to sort of position ourselves back in 1981. And in that year, Stephen Krashen produced a book. The copy I have here is one that I had on my bookshelves for a long time. It was about I+1, how we learn second languages. And it's where he came up with the idea of the I+1, which has been kind of debunked since then. But I always liked the idea that people can acquire languages by listening to it a lot, by getting, you always attend to a little bit more than you can actually understand. And through that, you're pulled into learning the language. You can actually download the book, Second Language Acquisition and Second Language Learning, which is the one I was actually looking for. But there's a link to it. You can get it online and read it there if you're interested. So meanwhile, moving forward a couple of years, I'm finishing my MA. I went to Toronto I was invited to a symposium on computer-assisted language learning, but we didn't call it that. We called it computer-assisted instruction at the time. And in fact, the Calico Journal, which you see on this screen, Calico stands for Computer Language Instruction Consortium. So at that symposium, though, we had to come up, we were forming an interest section. We had to come up with a name for it, and John Higgins, you might be familiar with John Higgins, I don't know, he's a pioneer in Cal. He insisted we call it Cal, not CAI, because the mindset for computers in those days was instruction or mastery learning or expert system. The idea was that the programmer was in charge of presenting manipulating the learner. Of course, it was actually the computer. People thought computers were doing that. So, but John Higgins was into concordancing. He was into, he wrote a book with Tim Johns. I think that's in the next screen. Oh, I don't know. Missed that one. Okay, so let me see. Back up to that one. Okay, so anyway, yeah, he data-driven learning. That was the concordancing aspect. They were into data-driven learning. You used concordancers so that you could get lots of text, and you could get the students to examine the text through concordancers. So that was the idea, that by presenting all this information, people could acquire language, kind of the way Krashen suggested they could do it. Then George Siemens in 2004 wrote a famous article on connectivism. He defined connectivism. And connectivism is what came to the core of all those MOOCs. In 2008, he and Dave Cormier and Stephen Downes produced the first MOOC. That is, they said they would teach a course at a university for credit, and they decided to invite everybody in their networks to come and join them. And they thought that's cool, we'll just do that. But what happened was thousands of people decided to join them, and at least 2,000. And they had to deal with that. And rather than, that's what Dave Cormier, or possibly Brian Alexander, came up with the term MOOC, multi-user open online course. And the idea behind that course was that chaos, the importance of chaos. And in this picture, George is being interviewed by Howard Rheingold, and there's a link at the bottom there that you can find back in my paper, I believe. But anyway, he said in that interview, and I transcribed it, I was so impressed with it. He said, "I'm not aware of any research actually that says linear structure produces better outcomes than more chaotic meandering structure. No research base for that. Our intent is to argue that the experience of learning, making sense of that chaos, is actually the heart of the learning experience." I'm going to go ahead and read this whole thing because I really like it. "But if an instructor makes sense of that chaos for you and gives you all the readings and sets the full path in place for you, then you are eviscerating the learner's experience, because now you've made sense for them and all you've told them is to walk the path that you've formed. When it comes to complexity, I'm a great fan of letting learners hack their way through that path and getting the value of that learning experience and of that sense-making process." I kind of felt that was my way of learning. There's somebody I met, actually I went to visit him in Croatia. His name is Filip Smolcic. And before we started dabbling in Minecraft, my friends and I, we were sort of trying to research what we were doing there. We produced this article, but Mariana Smolcic interviewed her son, Philip, about how he had become so fluent in Minecraft. And basically he was creating YouTube channels, interacting with other speakers. We have a lot of anecdotal evidence in the 6 years we've been working with Minecraft about how that works. If you go to the slides, you can read that article. The link is at the bottom of it. So, but the thing about chaos, people don't really like chaos. Teachers don't like chaos. Teachers prefer control sometimes, but it's sort of hard to let go. But that's kind of what you have to do for learning to take place. But there are two codicils, or two corollaries. That is that I know when I've tried to learn a language, like Japanese, for example, that wouldn't have worked for me. It was too much input. You know, you had to learn systematically how the language is constructed. At least that was a better way for me to learn that. But once you get to a point where you've got the basics down, then maybe you could be into that second codicil reliance. If teachers make this mistake, I think, they try to give the students support at the beginning, but they really need at some point to withdraw that support, or the learner needs to take it upon him or herself to just say, okay, never mind. They say that if you don't want to learn, no one can help you. If you want to learn, no one can stop you. So if a learner really wants to learn, that learner then is ready to address chaos. And at the bottom of the slide, I note that the Smolchet's brothers, he and his brother. Oh, I forgot to mention that he told me when I visited him in Croatia that the way they learned to understand Minecraft videos was to watch them, and it was totally incomprehensible to them. But he said after a while, the wall crumbled and meaning came out. And I think they were able to acquire English through that I+1 method, through total immersion, through chaos, because they were motivated to do it, first of all, and they had the time to do it, and also they didn't fall under the they weren't ranked beginners needing guidance in the process of learning themselves. Children don't really need that, and they weren't really in the very early stages of the language. Okay, so anyway, getting back to this idea about small, Mike Levy and Phil Hubbard in 2005 wrote an article they called "Why Call, Call, Call." It's a cute article. They argued that we should, because at the time there was a big, well, there's always been a dispute over why computers are everywhere. A computer is a microprocessor, so you mean microprocessor assisted learning? I don't know. So my focus has been lately more on what computers do and what people do with computers. But at that time, they wrote this "Why Call, Call, Call," and they said that we should retain the term call because it reliably describes what we do. And it's been used for 2 decades previous to that. So we were using it, it's good enough, and we should keep it because otherwise, well, we'd have chaos, right? But they included a longevity clause, what I call a longevity clause. In that article on pages 143 to 144, it says, perhaps the label call cannot ultimately make the transition from pre-network to network-based teaching and learning. So, well, guess where we are now? We're more in the era of network-based teaching and learning. So in around 2009, I've dug around my papers. I've sort of found out, where did I start talking about small social media assisted language learning? The first time I found a slide where I'd presented it at a conference was in Denver in 2009, and that was the 25th anniversary of the founding of the Cal Interest Section, the one that John Higgins insisted we call Cal. Well, it was about asking questions about what's happening with Cal, IS. I said, well, maybe the C in Cal is almost seamless, almost taken for granted. So social networking is the new front line. So why not call it small? And since then, I've written a lot more articles. There's some, actually that first link, the tinyurl.com/small2014, that has lots of resources about why I decided to do that. There's also a blog post there. Anyway, you can read those if you have the slides. So just out of curiosity, I did a Google Scholar search for small to see when it was used in the literature, and I found no hits in 2009, the year I brought it up. So that's nice. It's kind of my term. And then in 2010, if you can filter Google Scholar searches on terms, and you can filter them for years. So if you filter up through 2010, you get one hit, my hit from my thing. So, and if I go to 2011. I got another hit. Someone else is using call, Meshinter, citing something I had written in 2010, the one that came up in 2010. Anyway, so I feel pretty safe that there is, that this is a kind of something that people are not looking a lot at, but in 2019, last year, we had 10 references. I haven't checked it this year yet. So I've made numerous presentations on small, and this slide here gives you a link to a presentation, the last presentation I made at the Cal Research Conference in Hong Kong. I was in my living room, as you can see, and my participants were arrayed around a table in Hong Kong. Anyway, at that, if you click on that, though, you can get a list of all the other recordings I've done. Everything is there. Everything I wrote about small, it's all there. So rather than take more time with that, because it's not just about small, it's about going from small to Talon. How did we get to Talon? It came actually in January of this year, which you might, I don't know what you were doing in January of this year, but I was in Thailand and people were starting to wear face masks. And in the north, we went to the north of the country, they had students from China. They were very paranoid about social distancing. People on airplanes, we flew around, were wearing masks. So I was tasked to, as an English language specialist, to present workshops on using multiliteracies and 21st century skills in your own professional development. And basically what this was, it was about blended learning. I was supposed to teach or yeah, I don't know, model. I call it modeling. I was supposed to model for them how to present blended learning. So I used blended learning tools. Everything was online. When they came to the workshops, they said, go to this page, everything is here, what we're going to do. That's blended learning. Blended learning means you meet people face to face and you also have an online component. So I did that through January. And then the second part of the assignment was I was supposed to prepare an e-learning component, which would go from February 20th to March 11th. And you possibly can remember, I don't know when your school's closed or, you know, but it might have been in there sometime. In that, oh, by the way, the link there, learning how to create and use a blended learning classroom, that takes you to the e-learning course itself. So everything I do, I leave everything online. The paper I wrote for this conference, the slides, they'll be online forever. And you have the links. And so I'm very open. I like to be open. Anyway, so this course came along at a time when COVID was just, schools were starting to close. People were getting concerned about this. You know, how are we going to do this? And here's a friend of mine on Facebook said, I wouldn't even know where to begin with teaching my classes online this semester. Now he's coping with it well. But the thing is that, and you might click on the link at the bottom there. That's an interview with Jeff LeBeau, who is in Korea. He's been doing blended learning for a long time, gets the students online. He came on and he talked to me about this, but what he said was that he'd been doing blended learning for so long that when it came time to go online, it was just a matter, he said, of adding Zoom. I know it's more complicated than that, but still, the idea is that if you get where I'm going here, blended learning, you need to be good at blended learning in order to then move that online. So if you've got blended learning down, then you can move online. The people who are having the most problem were the people who had no idea about blended learning. So the things I was teaching in Thailand and the way it all came down, you can see that from some of these things here, there's Ajahn T was a teacher in Thailand, and she said this course was her only hope now, how to manage classes in Thailand, because I think she was going to travel during this endemic. She probably got out just in time. So anyway, my cat came up with the idea of Talon, and he prepared a Facebook page for me. I'm just kidding, of course. I like to joke during my presentations. Anyway, you can see the tiny URL for Talon, and you can go there, Talon 2020. I tried to get Talon, but it wasn't available. So anyway, you can also, there's a slideshow about Talon 2020 that I gave at HICA's virtual roundtable conference, and that's there as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about Talon. I've written a blog post about how Talon merged with those, how it came from the e-learning experience, and basically when it stopped on March 11th, it didn't really stop. It couldn't stop because we were immersed in it. We were into it. We were finding out how do we get these classes online? How do we help teachers? So I've always had Learning Together going, learningtogether.net. As we mentioned, this is the 470th episode for learningtogether.net. So I decided to sort of open up make a space that teachers could get together and propose to assist each other in their isolation. And even one teacher asked if we could do a regular meeting because he just liked to get together with his friends. So you can read about that if you want. You can read it in more detail. Okay, whoa, something's happened here. What's happened here? Oh, you know something? I've popped out to my, I popped out to the blog post itself. How do I get back? Let's see. Maybe. Oh yeah, okay, so if I go here, that should be, I'm having trouble sharing this tab to meet. No, I'm sharing it, okay. All right, so I'll refresh that tab. There we go, okay. You've probably got the slides, I hope, in my presentation. I'm gonna present that again. Yeah, somehow I popped in that window into the actual blog post. Okay, getting down to where we were. Sorry about this little glitch. Or maybe you like to go back and look over my slides again. Well, you can always, you've got them on your device anyway. Okay, so I'm coming down to the end of this. So there's where we were. Okay, yeah. Well, here's somebody, I don't know who this was, but I'm sure I can identify him later, but somebody yesterday made a talk that said, especially in teaching of English, the possibility of remote education is a real challenge for the teachers, and he was talking about that. And so, yes, that's true. I mentioned my EVO Minecraft MOOC. That's something that I did for 6 years, and that's an interesting aspect of, you know, my problem at the time 6 years ago was I wanted to use Minecraft in teaching, and I had no idea how to do it. I didn't even know how to play it, but I mean, I could get the game and I could kind of figure it out, but the real affordance of that is playing with other people. And if the people like Philip Smolchitz, if you want to learn English, that's a way to do it. So many people in the K-12 especially were teaching so many things on Minecraft. I really wanted to learn how to do it. I found it very difficult to get into it because it needs people to interact with. And so I couldn't really find people who would let me in because they're students there. They won't let an old guy like me into their midst. So I just decided, okay, I'll start this EVO session. And what I did is I attracted people who will teach each other, but basically teach me. And you can visit that page itself. If you look in the full text for Kuhn and Stevens, you can find an article about how participatory cultures work and getting people together. Now we're talking about two things here. One is teachers, teaching teachers, and the other thing is teaching students. So as far as the process of meeting this challenge, there are other initiatives I've taken, like Webheads in Action, for example, which has been going for 20 years. But if you want to know how to do something, you can start a COP and learn with other people. A COP is a community of practice. And engage your social networks. And this is kind of where we're coming from: small, social media assisted language learning, and social media assisted teacher professional development, I suppose. But something to keep in mind, you don't really have to know how to do it in order to engage other people to help you learn it. And the second thing, you practice what you want to learn in your community of practice. And you experience. That's what the participatory culture is about in Kuhn and Stevens. You experience learning through your social networks by actually doing it. And then you need to archive what you do. You need to make recordings, blog posts, reflect basically, and model for one another. How does it get to your students? Okay, so thinking small is a way to leverage your social networks to help you learn more about tools like you're doing now, just by being here, you're becoming more familiar with tools that you could go back and use with your students. And you might follow these steps. You can use your social media tools first with each other in communities of practice. Then you'll learn their affordances. You can learn what they do and how you could use them because you'll experience using them. So you'll learn, oh, this could apply to my class. And then you carry what you learn into your teaching. And if you use them in your teaching, in your blended learning environments, you'll be modeling to your students ways that they can use these tools to learn, or basically just a whole paradigm shift about how things that they might do on their cell phones can actually be used in learning. So Talon is a part of Learning Together. And this is just a slide. I'm coming down to the end of my presentation now. We make archives, we make blog posts. There's a couple of parts to Learning Together. Well, actually, if you go to learningtogether.net, there's an About tab there. And if you click on that, you'll come to the parts where we have a wiki which archives all our presentations. They're all archived at learningtogether.net, but there's an index that archive, the recording archives link at the bottom is the index for that. So I hope maybe we'll have time for questions. Don't forget, you can get the slides and the full text of this presentation at these tiny URLs. Oh, shall I stop presenting or leave that up for a moment? I'll wait for your guidance, Dilip.
Hello.
Yes. Hello, Dilip. Yes.
Yeah. Are you going to show this URLs, or do you want?
Oh, the URL there, if I click on it, well, one of them is for the slides, which is what I'm showing you now. And the other one is for the full text. So if I click there, let's see what happens. Are you getting the full text?
Yeah.
I don't know what you see because.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
Yeah, because it's a different tab. It comes up in a different tab. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, but you can click on it yourself. So you just either of those are easily accessible for people.
We can. Yeah. Yes, Vance.
Okay, so first time I've given a plenary for one of your conferences. So what happens now? Do people ask questions or?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So some of the questions we have, we also request the other people also, if they have questions, they can put in chat also, or if they wish to, they can come live and also question. We can take 2 or 3 questions here. One question we received was like, when you deal with the people in different countries, what are the problems faced by children? Like country-wise, does it matter a lot?
Dealing with children, I've taught at university level, and I've also interacted a lot with teachers since last century. I've been actually I started going online with language learners. I wouldn't say children; they were mostly young adults, and they came on to something we called writing for webheads, not to learn to write, but just to socialize, and they were learning English that way. So, and the tools we were using back at the time, that was last century, kind of carried us into it involved teachers, and so the teachers eventually took over that community of practice. So these are the people I've been working with. Okay, so working with children, we work with them in Minecraft, and I'm not really a teacher. I've got children and grandchildren, and in fact, the children are learning online now. My wife and I are sometimes reading stories and videoing them so that the children can see these, but that's not really my experience as a teacher. Elaborate a little on Minecraft. A good place for that is missions for Minecraft.pbworks.com. That's where all the elaboration is. But basically, we're having a lot of fun playing the game, because if you're going to learn something, you need to be having fun doing it. And it's not something that you would want to base a whole course around, but it's often said that when people want to use Minecraft with their students, some people say, well, but is it in the curriculum? And the answer is, well, the curriculum is in Minecraft, you see. So it's a very flexible tool. And the more you learn about it, the way you learn is you have to start playing it. And it helps if you're a gamer, if you like games. But anyway, you need people. It's a tool that is not going to be very useful standalone, but you can get Minecraft Edu now. You can pay, I think it's $20 a license. You can, or maybe it's even $5 a license. Yeah, that's it. I bought 20 licenses for $5 a license. So it's possible to have it working in an Office 365 domain, enterprise. Small and Talon are my acronyms, yes. Social media assisted language learning, Talon, teaching and learning in isolation. I was part of a community of practice called Teaching and Learning Online. They called it Tallo. And I was interacting with them at the time, and I thought, teaching and learning in isolation, you know? And then it just kind of rang. But yes, they're my acronyms. Okay. All right. So anyway,
there was one early question which was asking about that when we go for remote learning, what is the rate of retention among the learners?
That's a very good question. Retention is the opposite of recidivism, and there have been studies about recidivism when you have professional development. So that's a really good question, because I've done courses. There's a lady I interact with now her name is Lane Marshall, and she was a participant in one of my early courses. And in that course, she was the one who really liked what I was doing, and we've stayed friends ever since. That's 15 years ago. And that's the kind of retention I'm interested in. If you take a MOOC, it's argued that a lot of people drop out of MOOCs, but then that's because it's very easy to click on something and sign up for free, and okay, so you're going to lose 90% of the people just right there. But if you compare the number of people who matriculate in a course you're teaching face-to-face at a university versus the number of people who might matriculate even with a 90% dropout rate in a MOOC you're teaching, you're probably going to find the MOOC compares quite well. And then recidivism is the other thing. That is when people go and take courses like this one. I know we're going to have a questionnaire at the end to ask people what are you going to do now that you have all this information, and they'll be all excited, and they'll go back to their class and their schools, and they'll do exactly as they've done before. That's recidivism. So there's a high rate of recidivism, and I think the reason for that is that people aren't interacting with each other. When you start interacting with each other, then you sort of scaffold yourselves, you bootstrap yourselves. I think you know a lot about this, because we met in Vellore in India. I can't remember exactly the year, 2009 maybe, 2008, I can't remember. But, and I'm glad that you shaved your beard, because now you look the same, although I liked your beard quite a lot. But still, there's this connection that got revived through social media. So the people you interact with socially in social media tend to sort of stay with you. You see them at conferences from time to time, and when you see them, you feel like you know them, and or otherwise you just you might meet people at conferences and meet them again online. So this is the kind of interaction that you need to have with professional peers in order, and Dilip knows this very well. So that's what he does. I can see that's what he does. So,
yeah, that was a good reminder. Like 2008 or 9, it was when we were at Vellore VIT Institute for one international Asia Call conference.
Mhm.
But we kept on meeting over social media, like all the three resource persons here today present. We are in network only through Facebook, social media. But my question is like, still the perception of social media in society or in academia also is not very positive. Personally, I have benefited a lot. What you say is quite true. I have experienced also great benefit academically also. Good networking, good learning, lots of things. This webinar or the previous national webinar that we have done, we have received more than 1200 registrations and huge participation, over 100 people ready to present the paper. Now, everything is happening only because of social media. We are not sending even a single postal letter to anywhere, just posting on social media, and it is reaching out to the nooks and corners of entire India, from Jammu Kashmir to down to Kerala, from east to west, everywhere. A tremendous benefit of social media is there, but still academia is not taking it in a very favorable way. The overall perception of social media is not that positive. Do you have any answer for that?
Yeah, I'm going to let me stop my presentation here. The answer, I think, I've got my picture back. Yeah, okay. The answer is coming with COVID-19. They've got to change. The people, the old way of doing things was the problem, not just education, but also the environment and economic inequalities and things like that. So we've really got to change these things because, and they are going to change. We're being forced to change. So the people who have already changed are at an advantage because having changed, now you're, I used to tell people about Microsoft Messenger, back in the turn of the century. I used to present to them how social media could be used, and they, in the United Arab Emirates, and they said, well, but we can't use it in our, it's blocked. I said, well, you need to learn it because it's going to be there. And sure enough, all the barriers came aside. So I think academia will come along. I mean, right now, people are not accepting degrees from online universities, online degrees in the UAE. But they're going to have to change because people are going to be getting them. So, it's hard for people to go back to school. It's a wave of the future.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, COVID has played a very vital role in the way we accept the very idea of social media.
Yeah, it's critical right now.
Yeah. Okay, so Vance, thank you very much. Thanks a lot for your very interesting talk and very inspiring also.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you.
Now I would like to request our second plenary speaker, Anya Leon. A brief intro of Anya Leon I would like to read out. Anya is one of the key senior staff in the International Graduate Center of Education, College of Education, Charles Darwin University, Darwin, Australia. Anya teaches undergraduate and postgraduate courses focusing on language and literacy education and aspects concerning general and higher education pedagogy. Anya's responsibilities range from coordinating the Master of Education Global Learning course through to the development of the higher degree research supervision culture, building higher degree research students' capacity, as well as developing international links with South East Asian countries, especially Cambodia, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Anya is also a senior advisor to the Minister of Education, Dr. Hang Chuan Naron, in Cambodia. Anya is an experienced doctoral student supervisor. One of her own most recent call research includes a reading for emotion model that she developed to support students' language and literacy skills. Her recent book, Challenges in Global Learning, International Context, and Cross-Disciplinary Perspectives, concerns issues of policy, philosophy, and technology as the pillars informing pedagogical developments in Australia and Southeast Asian countries. Anyalian, I would request you to share your valuable views with all of us.
Thank you, Dilip. That was so nice and so tough to read my text. It was tough to write it too. All right, so I'll follow. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I will follow my presentation. I'm not sure if I have to turn off my video. I'll just present first. And hopefully it works. Now I can't hear you, which is really good.
Yeah, do you want to turn off your video?
Yes, I'll.
We are seeing your presentation. We are seeing here.
You're not seeing it yet now.
No,
You'll see it now.
yeah.
Okay, so is it visible? I'm just trying. Would you like me to turn off my camera?
Okay, fine. Up to you. Yeah.
Okay, I can't turn it off because something else is covering the command. Okay. So, all right. So I just want to run it. All right. So I just wanted to say that I was invited by Dilip to give a presentation at this webinar. It's been an honor to present to such a wide audience, reaching across India and also many other countries across the globe. Now, I've listened to the presentations over the last 2 days, and mainly these presentations were about schools. However, I was asked by Dilip to present something from the perspective of the teacher educator. So all our teachers who were presenting so excellently about their own work in schools, they are taught by people like me. They come to university, they do their bachelor degree, and if they pass, they can proceed to go to schools and work with children. So Dilip also asked me to do something exciting. I love exciting things, but I thought that a lot of exciting things, as you know yourselves, are still in the nappies. So let me take you through my presentation, and hopefully I will not get too tense and I will manage to say everything I would like to share with you. So what I wanted to talk about is what we actually expect of technology, right? A lot of things are happening. A lot of technical things are happening. And as I will show to you, there needs to be some backup happening as well from academia, from people of practice, so that they can use the technology, because the technical aspects of technology, while great and we need them, they just won't fix our daily problems with students. So we will talk about it. What's currently available, limitations of it, what we can do today, and also I will touch on research. This is not to say that all other points are not about research. Everything in this PowerPoint is based on research, and you will detect it very quickly. But I will make the cross-linking as I go through the presentation. So when we get our students nowadays, so in Australia since 2014, the life of our undergraduate students has changed, right? So it's really tough nowadays. So everyone knows about the 21st century skills, and things have changed in universities around the globe, and especially in Australia, where things like what people have mentioned very often, the higher order thinking skills, have to be integrated into the curricula. Otherwise, university courses do not get accredited. So things like complex problem-solving skills, critical thinking, all of this that you see here. So we don't teach reading, we teach reading so that you can have skills necessary for you to communicate, and for you to communicate informed, and for you to communicate in a way that is effective, solves problems, all of that. So writing alone or reading alone is not enough. It has to be informed in order for you to be effective, and that means all other things that come with the dimension of effectiveness. I will come back to it. So we have standards. Overseas, it's often called competencies. We have standards. Every degree level has its own standards. I will not spend much time on that, but depending on the level of a degree, the complexity of those competencies increases. So regarding technology, very often when I read papers, even nowadays, when I read about the state of the art of the use of technology to teach languages, too often I see the focus on games, wikis, conversations, right? As good as they are, they have a place, but they're not good enough in themselves. There's more needed so that our students, when they study English, say at the university, so that they can actually demonstrate upon completion their complex skills, not just the ability to click here or answer a question or do a grammar drill, right? More is needed. So what more? What is more? So activities that extend students' capacity to act in a broad range of contexts, demonstrate their intercultural understandings, and also the capacity to think critically, gather information, analyze information, evaluate information, synthesize. Very important. All of these things need to be present. So that's a little bit of a critique of what's happening now. Then what else would we like from technology? We would like a context where, you know, our students do the things that they do know, that we do normally. So natural communication, goal-oriented, you know, two people meet together in a coffee shop. What we would also like to see is that technology supports self-directed learning, obviously the collaborative learning, but also self-directed, whereby students can actually access support system, enabling them to raise questions that are relevant for them and also find answers to those questions. So there are many things happening out there, like, you know, more stylized, naturalized interactions. We would like so examples of how to interact, personalized feedback. That would be good, right? That the system actually hears you, generates something for you. That's tough. Online dictionaries, that's great. We love it. All of that, tutorials, drills, that's been with us forever. But they're good. There's a place for it, but it's not enough. So I looked, just to please Dilip, I looked at virtual reality. I looked at, I mean, we've worked with students. Obviously, I'm part of the research team. We've looked at with our PhD students at virtual reality, Second Life, things like this. Like for the last 30 years, it's been around. And there's a lot of promise there, but there's also some critique here. So it does allow the virtual reality as it is at this very moment, and I'm not saying it shouldn't develop, it will develop. It does allow for these natural goal-oriented interactions. But there is a but. I will tell you about the but shortly. So what else is on these systems? You can have these stylized interactions, right? Kind of like you can have them on the apps as well, you know, at the coffee shop, at the pub, at the bank, you know, these sort of narrow contexts whereby you say you will ask for juice, or can I have juice? Can I have coffee? Can I have water? So you drill these structures and they're great. However, they still don't teach you to talk about your discipline in a way that you can actually communicate with your peers about your latest innovation. So at university, you're required to build or to develop more complex skills. There is a place for apps. There is more needed. So this is another example I found on the internet, you know, drive me to the hotel, drive me to the gym, drive me to my friend, this street, that street. So this interaction is important, and they have their place. They should be in the system, but they are limited. Augmented reality at this very moment still in the nappies. You know, augmented means that you put your camera against the background and you get more information about it than you can actually see in reality. So for example, here, description of a site, that's great, or in museum, you can choose your language and that tutor talks to you. So that's exciting. You just, if you click German and you don't speak German, you're in trouble. You can act out things, that's great. All of this is great, but you have to have words. If you want to play, if you want to present a play, that's wonderful. Now, what will you say? You've got to learn it. So all these systems are great and they can be used, but there is some backup needed because students need to prepare. Like if they want to present Shakespeare play or whatever play they design themselves, they need to prepare. And drills and free conversations won't do it, right? If you want to have a genuine play that you want to present to people, there's more needed than just, this is my coffee, would you like a tea? And that kind of drill. Scope of activities is, right? So these systems that we looked at briefly and these common apps do not necessarily expand the range of our students' participation context, and not necessarily yet have enough systems to develop in students' awareness of intercultural understandings and also values, and processes of culture of critical thinking are not necessarily that visible in them. So a lot of work needs to be done. So why they're great to take your learning to them and record yourself doing things as support systems. Some things are present, some things are very much missing. Right, so the technology tools. I hear all the time those wikis and those other things, and they're extremely important, and I will not talk about them, right? So we can share information via Google Documents and all of that. We've spoken about it. Every presentation was full of them, and so I will not touch on these things. But I do want to talk about things like technology tools that are specific to students' needs, right? This is where research sits or should sit. And this is where, in fact, learning support should be focused on, right? This is where it happens. Because if we, the experts on students' learning of English or any other language, right, do not think of how to support students' personal needs, then no amount of wiki conversation is going to fix students' writing or pronunciation or the knowledge or understandings of cultural differences or commonalities. So what I wanted to suggest today to you is a model that I will just very quickly present, and hopefully it will be generalizable beyond university. So I will show you how you can do it at university, but you can scale it down to even school or even early childhood context. It's a model, and I'll present a model and I'll present examples. So the first thing that I wanted to say is that to go beyond single lesson designs, projects, I think Dilip asked a question, how many students actually persist or stay, when teaching is done online. I think that when people are engaged in a project, when they're all in trouble together, that gives meaning to their participation in the course. Very different than if they have to cover material and write assignments, then the motivation is more sort of, or only external. There is no how do you call that spirit, like we're all in it together, that solidarity, right? Oh my goodness, I don't want to do it, but if I don't do it, then everything else falls apart. So those project contexts are extremely good. And I wanted to say that in order for those projects to be not just successful, because people can pass those projects and do them maybe well, but in a way that actually is productive to students, and students can actually feel that they are learning a lot and getting a lot out of the context of learning. We need to focus on student preparation and on the resources we make available for students, for them to feel that they are learning, that they can do things, and that big tasks are not so big as they seem, right? So that chaos, that when we give students tools to manage chaos for themselves, then they feel, oh, all right, I can do that. It's way different than we don't help them with chaos, and all they feel is the stress of the challenge that a particular teaching context presents them with. So this slide is least important, but for me, obviously I spent time on it. So what we have here is, I ask myself, so where do these projects come from? Well, they come, if we want learning to be kind of reflecting this immersion context, right? The immersion is an excellent, and we know it since the 70s, we had these immersion learning programs, and they've been, they've had some critique. Nonetheless, they've been very good. You take a 7 or 10 or 11-year-old child to Australia, within 6 months, they speak English better than their parents. So, so I ask myself, where do these projects come from? So what do we do in daily life? Looking from the left to the right, we meet, we work, we collaborate, we develop plans, we meet online, we collaborate, we present, we play games, we go shopping, we do all of the things, we watch television, right? So a lot of things we do in daily life. Can we somehow in our classes mimic life, bring the life to classroom and design projects that mimic life and help students to be in English while they study in India, Indonesia, Cambodia, right? Can we actually make them live in English while in Indonesia? Can we create projects like this? And obviously many of you have experience in that. I'll just talk about it from my perspective. So one of the frequently done projects at University of Queensland under the supervision of Professor Andrew Lyon, president of Asia Call, he was doing one day on French television. Nothing stops us from engaging students in a project like one day on Indian television. Now, this will require as particular inspiration from the teacher, right? So that's the trigger that we create, which is what things we could do, what things interest us. So when we look at the television, what does it have? It has a news, weather, sport, culture report. It has advertisement, it has political debates, it has advertisements. Now that looks daunting. Anyone telling me that after, say, 2 years or 1 year or even 6 months, as a group, my class could create one day on Indian television, nobody will believe it. Nobody will believe it. But if we divide it into groups, you do the news, you do the advertisements, you do the political debate, now it's getting a little bit more, you can put your claws on it a little bit. And if we have some tools and some system to work with, well, it could be actually fun. The fun that Vance was talking about, right, when he talked about Minecraft. Anyway, there are other things that we could put on television or even develop our own YouTube channels. So, all of us know that there are amazingly popular YouTube channels. So there are things like content creators. They're usually people talking about games, or people having political or social interviews on different topics. Then did you know that the nursery rhymes have like 300 million members there? So I often, with my undergraduate students, the way I would trigger the interest in, say, one day on Indian TV or something, is to show what other kids do. We have YouTube, there's a lot of things done. So this is I took a picture from YouTube, I just typed kids doing news, and instantly I got 300 of these things. And there's a video here, watch Teen Kids News full episode, right? And it's like 23 minutes long, great. Now, this is 2020, yeah, right, we're in 2020. I was just wondering whether we just crossed to 21, but not yet. But my student, Maliwan Bunarapatana from Thailand at Konkan University, she's now a professor in Japan somewhere. She did a project, created Thai News Network, extremely popular project with first-year students of Thai, so it was in Thai language. Now, that was done before we had YouTube, when we used to type, create websites with HTTP codes. She had the support from university, the students engaged the whole university community, the teachers, the whole university population, they engaged the area where the region where they live. They were bringing stories from universities, they were bringing stories from the farmers, they were bringing stories from the people of the region. It was an amazing thing. But what's important when we do these things, projects of this kind, like One Day on television, we need to have resources. I've been talking about it. So resources could be of different kind. They could help students find patterns in text. They could be also listening comprehension things, because when you actually listen to news, you actually want to understand it. They could be resources helping students with pronunciation, structure-focused exercises, all of these things. Now I have this little model here. Nothing, absolutely no prizes here to get it. It just looks nice. You inspire with students and explore. Then the next is students design, and the next stage is students actually develop the project. And I'll just talk about online environment shortly. Oh, by the way, in the other slide, I showed different systems for collaborations like Zoom or Google Meets, but Facebook nowadays has these. So if you want to upload a picture, just before a picture, there's a little icon, and actually you can create your gathering room where you can actually meet up and do things. So every class, whether online or not online, has these three components, right? It has a teacher, which is, and the role of a teacher is to inspire, synthesize, maybe generate conversation. It has a collaboration, and it has a homework, which is the individual component, right? Because even when students work in a group, they have to also do some work individually so that the group can flourish. So these three components. The teacher inspires, explore different types of news, right? Prepare resources helping students to find patterns. Explore, what is it? Does the American news, British news, Indian news, are they the same? How do they differ? All this exploratory talk. This is a way to bring the task of creating your own news network closer to reality. Students, when you have this discussion, when they feel that they can actually look for patterns, even when they don't understand text, they can check gestuality, how the camera sits, whatever is meaningful to them. You have this little discussion, and you can do it through Zoom, through any online system. So you can do it in classroom, you can do it online, where kids have beautiful discussion with you. Like we have here 200 people online, and we did have a discussion with Vance, and you can actually have it also with your students. Then the next thing is still collaboration. You look at for structural regularity. So you could, I'm just throwing these things, not necessarily how they should follow, because you could have students now doing homework and actually do some comprehension exercises. I'll talk about it later. But the things that you look for are kind of patterns, right? You want students to detect patterns, so they start coming up with some order out of the chaos, which then presenters first throw at them as they speak in a language that maybe they understand but not that well. So students will come up and say, oh, this is the part. And like, for example, how does the British news start, you know? So they first give you a little bit of a headline, like a plea for peace was made by someone. Today is the 1st of June 2020, and you are watching the 5 o'clock news with Sophie Bryan, BBC London, for example, right? So these are lines that to us come natural. Students have to learn. How do Americans start it? And so we could have a discussion where the heck the Americans are doing it differently. Right? It is exciting. It's a cultural information we could actually check. We could check few American news now and see whether our guesses are right. We could talk to someone from America and ask them whether we got it right. So you can extend these things. Now, this just gradually gives people an idea that, oh my goodness, I'm excited. We could do something like this. We could do American thing. We could do the Indian thing. You know, we would choose the kind of genre in which we would like to actually produce our news, or maybe do a mix. Now, over the years, we've worked with, especially I work with Andrew Lyon, Professor Andrew Lyon over the years, but many other PhD students of ours as well. We've developed systems to support this kind of discussion and this kind of listening comprehension activities to enable students to actually make sense of text. Now, obviously you have no access to this particular thing, but what it does, where you have blobs, they're basically words from a particular program, right? And then students, through different types of activities, they've gradually identify what these words are, and they actually detect the text of the listening comprehension. Now, the key that I wanted to make for us here in this presentation is you don't have to have the system that Andrew Lyon created. You as teachers can connect and should connect with your university in a project that develops listening programs like this and others, and your department, which will not have enough of IT skills to do it. This is what Andrew Lyon did at University of Canberra when he was a professor there. He connected then with the IT section of the university and the students studying IT to do their project, to get their grades for the semester. We're devising listening systems for language teachers like this one. Right? So you go to so you create this collaboration, teacher, Department of Languages in your university, which is close to you, and your Department of Languages with IT. And if I'm talking to mainly people from India, everybody knows that nobody is stronger in technology than India. Well, I trust Trump. He says America is, but you know what I'm saying. India is just fantastic at it. And you have IT specialists just about as many as pebbles on the beach, right? Not difficult. Now, if that gets difficult, there is always script. So students could also at home, this is homework, right? They could actually run through different news sections and actually, so I'm not sure whether everybody knows where to find the script. For me, it's obvious, but I have been on Facebook. I'm very active on Facebook, as Dilip knows. And, you know, so you see this arrow on the bottom here where next to save, there are 3 dots there. Most of the news channels will have script, you can show it. There are other ways to actually identify patterns in text. So I developed a system for reading for emotion, as Dilip has read out before. Now this is a specific system, specific that I designed for the needs of literacy of students. Very similar, not similar, but sort of along the lines of what we had the presenter talking earlier on literacy and Joseph Campbell. Remember that? That was great. That I could actually link up with that. But you don't have to have it. The thing is that the biggest limping problem in language teaching has been that we bow too much to the authority of academia. And then instead of developing our crazy models that seem to us, we think that there is a golden model or method for teaching reading or writing, and we're paying heaps of money to, say, Australia to give us their model. We bring it to India. We don't even know whether it's any good. Just because Australia says it's great, it doesn't make it great. It's just something they invented. Invent your own models. And remember, even here, when I'm presenting, this is the 3rd way or 4th way I've given to you, just to do listening comprehension and understand what's happening, how to work with students. online and also in class, how to work with students in order to bring the text closer to them so that they can actually make sense out of it. Now, I developed this on the basis of whatever I've read and whatever I have, sort of inspired me. There's millions of teachers in Indonesia who have these thoughts and ideas. My student from Indonesia, Wahid Nasruddin, just finished his PhD, and gladly I'm happy to cite he passed. That's what he discovered. The teachers of English in Indonesian universities were too scared to ask questions of themselves. They were too scared to innovate. They just keep buying this knowledge and do not create their own. Just develop many. Every student will use any of those systems that you develop, you design, you generalize in order to actually put them online for individual, to support individual and collaborative work. They will use any of them, different ones, and each of them will do something else for them. There is no such a thing like a golden thing. What there is management of chaos. And there are many ways that we can invent to support students in their job. Now, and then students, after they've done all this, structural works and so on, they move on to completing the project. You can also have, I absolutely have no problem with drills and so on. So once students go and do these exploratory works and they generalize for themselves things, you can actually put on, generate some very structural drills and actually, practice with them some patterns that are more, that are important for them to, in order to generalize information. There are other things. There is online. There are actually, this is here. It's hidden. What's this icon about? But basically, it's a BBC journalist. You can find it online yourself on YouTube. He is teaching. This is a 3-minute video. He's teaching how to write news scoops. This is like God's telling you how they do the job. When people grow old, they want to pass on. They want to leave legacy. So they teach for free. It's 3-minute clips, and you can learn how to do it. So I have developed also another thing that students can do collaboratively. When they do peer editing together, when they produce their text, they can do peer editing, and basically they can record their voice and get the intonation pattern out of it. So intonation line. So there are systems for it. We use WinPitch, but we also use, I forgot now, but you can just type, intonation pitch and software, and you get at least 3 of them are very good online currently. Now, this is very interesting what I found out. If you look at texts written by good writers, as opposed to student authors, they're very much different. If you notice this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it represents 5 chunks in a sentence. And chunk is something that you say before you take a breath. So academic writing as aesthetics applied to chunks, creative use of technology, chunk, to support multisensory learning, chunk, right? So what happens, what I've noticed that when I've done my research is that actually good writers write mostly long sentences. Obviously there's place for shorter ones, but long ones. Well, that's very interesting. Instead of teaching people how to write sentences, what you can say is ask them, oh, look, because this is a postgraduate student of mine from the Philippines. She wrote 1, 2, 1, 2. So she had only 2 chunks. She wrote like a 6-year-old. Whereas a complex text will have 5 to 8 chunks. Wow. So instead of teaching them how to write, say to students, okay, you've got 3 sentences, each of them 2 chunks, combine them. Right? So rather than you solving the problem for them, ask them. This is critical thinking. Now they are thinking what the heck they were saying in those 6 sentences of 2 chunks, and how can they now work with English to learn how to actually connect them, how to identify the key message, so that they can put the key issue right at the front of the sentence, and everything else, as the intonation drops, so does the relevance drop, right? So they think, what's the most important thing? Now, the system is online, the collaboration together as peer editing is happening, students can discuss together, or you can do it individually at home and wreck your head yourself. How do I solve it? You could have examples online showing solutions but you can produce solutions for every sentence, and it's an excellent exercise for generalizing, putting online, giving students tools so that they start getting their own head around their own thinking and actually writing, and actually check how they write and make corrections themselves. Now, Andrew also, Professor Lyon, has been known for his pronunciation things. So he's got extremely good results with his pronunciation patterns and how he actually improves people's pronunciations. And he works obviously first on the intonation patterns, and then the rest of that things follow. And they are creating increasingly precise pronunciation teaching tools. Good. He's probably good at it and probably achieves miracles, but it doesn't say that you yourself cannot actually invent something, maybe less evidenced, maybe less brilliant, maybe less effective, but Jesus, for every student, if they have a little bit of support, is way more than leaving them alone. And as you now, engage with your academic collaborators, discuss it, engage with the IT department, create some things, and from small things, big things grow. And you never know. My collaborator Andrew Lyon has a student, he's just finished his PhD, or is finishing his PhD, and he questioned something that Andrew Lyon has been doing for 30 years. And now they've broken new ground, right? So it doesn't say that you have to be professor for 300 years to actually break new ground. Sometimes stupid question opens new areas of development. So my argument here is we can provide support systems, provided we link together as teachers, we link together with academia, and we link together with IT departments in our universities. We need to empower ourselves rather than continuously rely on the old systems, Wiki Google, Wiki Google, Wiki Google. For how long are we going to be just running in circles? Whereas our students want to pronounce, our students want to understand what's happening in the text and understand it in a more quality way, not necessarily just simple way. So these are the sort of things we do in pronunciation. So people do crazy things like warp to the intonation and all of that, dance to the intonation. Now, many of you know that Word has things. So when you produce this is simple. This has nothing to do with big research, right? I'm sure if I showed it to Professor Lyon, he would think that I'm primitive. I love being primitive. So if you produce your news scope and intonation graphs showed that it is a complex text, you can actually learn to read okay, so it's not working well with Zoom. All right, so it's not working well with Zoom. I don't have a problem. If you see on the right, you have play buttons here. So basically where document can actually read for you the news scoop you've created, and that way you can practice your English. Obviously no PhD here in it maybe, but way better to have access to natural English than just reading it yourself and being on your own. So I'll just try now to go to the next slide if this allows me. Probably won't. So I'm stuck. Okay. So there are some more structural systems that Andrew has created and we could create. Now project completion. So we had crazy things. So some of it was, like in 2002 when students finished it in Thailand, that was on the web, but it didn't have videos. Then another students picked up the project and they actually had videos online. So they had also Thai News Network, and they had they ran it on the university website with videos and all of that. You could actually post these things in a space, be it now your Second Life area or anywhere else that you think that you have access to. Now this is crazy, it will not work again. Now notice that this is a meeting. If you do your news scoop, you could actually say a word, say a sentence in your language, say in Indian, and it gets translated, or say in Portuguese, right? So you could have international live interviews whereby you collaborate with people from different countries. They speak to you. So this is part of your newsroom sort of news program. You get some person from Kenya talking to you to explain to you about Ebola or some other issue they have. They speak in their own language, gets translated into English, and that's cool. That's really cool. Now you could use it for, I mean, I'm just pointing it out because you know the Google Translate actually has this speaking facility. So it's not just writing, it's also actually reading. So you can actually have live interviews with this facility. I've recorded it, but it's conflicting with Zoom, so it won't play. Excellent. Imagination, right? I invented it only yesterday as I was producing this PowerPoint. So you can really get your head going and do crazy things, but the more support we develop, the better for our students. Now, I'm not gonna read through it, but basically I gave myself all the green ticks here for every requirement that we expect from technology and also expect from higher education learning. Now you could question it, I'm happy with it. So I'm very biased towards myself. Now, there are maps that Professor Andrew Lyon invented for future, how you could actually structure. This is Andrew Lyon is a visionary. That won't happen for 100 years, it's my bet, but he has this fantastic view. But basically we have somewhere central database connected to the worldwide on the top. So on the top is the worldwide, then we go down, there's an audiovisual database. The learner accesses the worldwide network, and then somehow, forget about audiovisual database, the learner accesses the World Wide Web, and through the multitude of systems that and different activities that are there and different databases that are there, basically the learner can say, I want a dialogue at the butcher, or I would like to do listening comprehension, I would like to understand some relationships in text, and basically the system spits out whatever the student might need. Now, this is the last slide. I'm not gonna read it. I'm just putting this here for the record because the video, this presentation gets recorded, so some of you might actually stop it and read it. I developed with a student of mine, master student of mine, and the paper is on the research guide. So if you look for Anya Lyon and Amy Norman, you'll find it. It's on the last page of that particular paper with her, and that's basically a framework that we designed for thinking of technology. So we think on the left is about the different aspects of learning as a self-efficacy, as a cultural aspect, and also as critical thinking. Then different activities that are supportive of those kinds of learning, and then different strategies of the types of systems that are needed actually to address those learning dimensions and be of help in the context of those activities in the middle column. Now, obviously, I'm not reading this. That's just for the record. And that's it. Thank you so much. I used to look like this. I think it was good. All right. So thank you so much. I'm happy to listen to your questions now.
Yes, that was really interesting, very, very deep, very thorough, very interesting models. Also, you displayed working with Andrew Lyon, wonderful work has been done, and you shared all those things also. If there are any questions, and if anybody wants to come online, you can also unmute your mic and you can ask straight away a question. I got a couple of questions here from the chat box. This is from Jitendra Gohil. How to it says that how to be available for instruction when someone is struggling, if and when time is limited. It is about online teaching. Okay, fine. So Jitendra Gohil is trying to ask that when we are on online teaching, and if our learners are struggling, then how to give them instructions. We have limited resources. That is one part. And the second part of the question is like, what kind of feedback to collect after the course, and how far that feedback will be reliable, or how it can be used in the context. That is what he is trying to ask.
Okay, so the first question is, so I can only respond to it in the context of my pedagogy, which is always about projects. So within the project, students find themselves according, there I said this is this communist sort of slogan, according, they work within their capacities. So students, as when they work in group on a particular news scoop, the group divides the responsibilities, who is doing what, and you help the group in the beginning. When they do another project, they will not want to see your face, but the first time when they work on the project, that you can assist the group in identifying the scope of activities that each of the students will do themselves in order to add to that shared project that the particular group is finishing. And in that way, the student can adjust and can say, well, okay, maybe I'll just do this little thing, and that's fine. So that's what projects do. Projects enable each student to find themselves within the activity according to what they can do and how far they wish to go. When it comes to assessment, to feedback, well, as you noticed, the system that I try to promote is about making sense out of chaos, which is what Vance was saying, which means the feedback most of the time is instantaneous. So when we have discussions, when students work online, when students use online systems to collaborate together, the feedback is instantaneous. But if you would like to actually see how much in terms of your outcomes, how much students have been covering, then you can have a grid and you can ask students to present either individually or as a group, and then you can see where they are on the map of your grid, what kinds of capabilities that maybe you need to work on or develop resources for, so that they can actually get there. Because sometimes we think, and it's normal, when you are very proficient at your work, you forgot how hard it was when you were 25 or 23 or 15, right? So when you can see that they actually are not meeting the learning outcomes you wish they met, you might actually need to put some support systems for them to actually get better. Now, I strongly move people, as you have your learning outcomes, think of the detail, but also think of the global picture, which is the cultural, critical, and the personal capabilities, the competencies, the self-awareness and social awareness, right? So that you don't just teach comma and you don't teach the detail, but you see how the global capacities with the smaller detailed knowledge, how they link together to feed together each other. So you don't end up with students who know everything about comma, but have no social skills in English.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah. You also gave examples about news channels and the content of news channels for classroom teaching. Well, what we have seen in last 3-4 years, before 3-4 years, things were quite normal, but in last 3-4 years, things have become terrible in the newsrooms, and there is lots of hue and cry, the right versus left, this and that, pro power and anti power debates, and other thing. That sometimes I feel that bringing those languages or those debates in the classroom becomes really terrible also. I know you are posting a lot about political things on your social media, and I also keep on posting those things. But taking those things in the classroom, do you think that it can lead into some kind of fractions in the classroom who are having very strongly pro-political party or pro-government or anti kind of a thing?
Okay, so I think this is the most important question probably for the current times that could anyone ask. If you read the literacy literature on how to teach literacy in Australian schools or even in American schools, since the 90s and definitely in 2000s, this century, the one word that has crept into that literature is that we need to prepare students, not reading, writing, not just thinking, but ideologically. Where did that come from? Would you be happy if you say you're conservative, and would you be happy that your child goes to school and someone feeds them with a different ideology? You are Christian or you are something else, and someone tells them some other thing. I think that the space for this literacy teaching is excellent for taking students away from those battles and actually do some reading, do some thinking, and maybe develop in them a culture of approaching texts and debates completely differently. So yes, that's what's happening, but let's gather information, let's analyze, not gather information from right and left, but read something else, something, about history. People don't have longevity, gather information, analyze, and move somewhere else completely. That's the problem with templates. My students, because they go to schools and they bring from schools different traditions, and we're teaching, rather than teaching creativity, which is what curriculum says, we're teaching students to template. So this is how you do the news, this is how you do this is what you say. Where is there gonna be a creative, critical person who actually creates news completely differently, provided that there is some aspect of the news in it, like some elements, great. But it doesn't have to be the same rhetoric and the same arguments and the same games that are being played. The new people, like there hasn't been rock and roll 100 years ago. Someone invented the new genre. They didn't play music to the template. Our kids don't have to play news to the template.
That's true. We need to prepare people for a better society, and these debates are necessary even in the language classrooms. Yeah. There was one question about machine translation. We have seen in Indian languages, we have like more than 24 languages in India, and machine translations are not working appropriately when it comes to idioms or maxims. So what do you think? Maybe with European languages, it works to a greater extent? Yeah.
It's excellent. What an excellent opportunity. Forget the machine translation. When I work with my PhD students, and if you may notice that English is not my native language. I speak 6 languages, so I've got a fair bit of intonation patterns in my head and vocabulary databases. And sometimes when I work with my PhD student, I don't know whether this phrase is right or something. So you use Google. You need to verify. So if you got the translation from Indian to English, then take that English sentence, put it in Google Translate, and see what will happen when you translate it back to Indian. Also, if you have some phrases that you're not sure whether it will work, put it into Google in inverted commas and see how many, what's the word for those? How many examples you will get of that particular phrase. And I was trying to actually show it today, but I gave up on that. So for example, I want chair as opposed to I want a chair. Type I want chair and you will see that you will not get any examples in Google thrown out without the article. So then you quickly can work out there has to be an article there. You may sometimes trip because there could be some website from China or from Poland or from somewhere else where they will not have an article in it. Then check with the website. You're learning research skills, which is exactly what you want at universities and in schools, right? Research skills, how to work with Google, how to work with English, how to verify information. From Google, from Indian to English, from English to back to Indian, and then also check on Google whether those expressions actually exist in English. Great.
Yeah, very true. I agree with you. Even like even to write something in my mother language or Hindi, that is our Indian language, I use Google Translation nowadays. So maybe not for a full sentence and other thing, but still it is very helpful. It helps a lot. There is one question from Cherry Matthew Philippos, that how to encourage teachers who have tech phobia.
The question is, it's not necessarily the tech phobia. Obviously, some people don't have enough of something, right? Something always is missing. But I think that what motivates me, Professor Lyon, and maybe Vance as well, maybe Heike as well, Vance definitely talked about it, is that every person is different. You cannot accommodate for the questions that people have on their mind without actually facilitating some learner-centeredness. So for example, people teach phonics in Australia, right? And I often say, why do you, I mean, I don't have a problem with phonics, but why don't you give them text to speech and speech to text? There are systems out there where kids can talk to the computer, see what the computer spits out, talk about it, play with letters, remove some letters. So the computer, if you write English, the computer will read English. If you remove H, the computer will read English. If you remove 4 letters, it will read eng, right? So the kid is developing now sets of awarenesses that you could not generate if you were teaching 27 people all at once, because you can't predict that these awarenesses are actually important for them to develop sound writing awarenesses, right? When they play, stupidly as it may seem, it's just creating links, and this is this connectionism. Our brains are not just straight lines, so very often we think that, you know, the more we look after a person, the more they actually come out as a great expert. The truth is that we ourselves love moment when everybody leaves us alone with Google or YouTube, and we can just play and find information, whatever, you know, just seems important at the moment. The same with students, can't control everything, and we are not always aware what kind of connections they need to make. So facilitating that freedom and time for people to play, to build unpredictable relationships in their, or connections in their head, is extremely important.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So thank you very much, Anya, for sparing your time and sharing wonderful ideas with us. To all the participants, this presentation will be available on our webinar website. She has already shared the PPT in advance, so you can access to these slides from our webinar website. Thank you very much, Anya.
Thank you very much.
We move towards the third speaker, Heike Philp. There, I hope she has just left, maybe because of some technical problem, out of the room. Are you there, Heike?
I am indeed, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, you are there. A brief introduction, and then I would ask you to share your views with all of us. Yeah.
Thank you. Will you introduce me, or shall I introduce myself?
Just a minute. Just a minute. Yeah, I'm reading your bio. Yeah. Dear participants, Heike Philp is CEO of Let's Talk online company based in Brussels, Belgium, immersive language education specialist and webinerd. I like this word, webinerd. It is better to be alluded rather than, in terms of webinerd. There are lots of people in India nowadays who are criticizing this webinar or webidemic or webiphobias kind of things also, but webinerd is an interesting word. Philp co-initiated 4 European funded projects to develop accredited and certified teacher training courses for language teaching and learning in real time at a projects are Lancelot, Avalon, Camelot, and Genever. I hope it is Genever from Genius. Philp runs her own web conferences known as Virtual Roundtable Web Conference on Language Learning Technologies, DAF WebCon, for teachers of German and V languages annual symposium. She co-owns EduNation Islands in Second Life, regions in OpenSim, and servers in Minecraft. Now this is also very interesting. Like everybody would like to be owner of some islands, some regions in some virtual platform. Well, Heike Philp owns some islands on EduNation, the Second Life, regions in OpenSim, and servers in Minecraft there. Very interesting profile, Heike Philp, you have. I request you to share your views.
Thank you very much for the introduction. And it's a delight to be here. It has been a long day for you. And you have started very, very early in the morning, Dilip, you with astounding posture and patience with the many presentations. And I've been able to listen to some of them yesterday, some of them this morning. It's been such a delight. And thank you very much for all those who presented the papers. And there have been some really, really outstanding talks in between. And they're only 8 minutes. So I mean, imagine that you have to go and present in 8 minutes. I'm glad I've got a little bit more. I also would like to do this presentation, not as a presentation, but a little bit as an interactive talk. And interactive, I mean that it is now you, the audience, to be able to share your thoughts and ideas. And would we be able to start with this one, if that's okay? And we have prepared something like a bit of a polling using Mentimeter, by the way, also recommended by one of the paper presenters. And the Mentimeter is I'll start it in a minute so you can see the results. And what we would like to ask you is kindly to open a website. And Vance or Dilip, could I just ask you to check your emails, because I've sent a couple of links which I would like someone to paste into the text chat. Perhaps if you could help me with pasting those, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah.
And I'm just trying to open here this again on the website so that I can see the text chat better. I hope it's okay. So you can freely join me in the text chat. Thank you very much, Samia, for the most welcome. I know you also have to sign in to being present here at this webinar in order to get the certificate. You can do this in a minute if you could allow us to first of all do the Mentimeter presentation. And dear Kartikeya, please do not share your screen. I'm about to share my screen now. And we'll start Mentimeter and we'll then kick this off. Just as I said, the first 15 minutes, all we do, thank you, Jay, we will do, so Chrome tab, here we go. I'd like to ask you all to help me understand where you're from, and what you do is the following, and this is truly 38 already, so menti.com. Those of you who are in Google Meet on the mobile phone, you can also open this in an extra website. However, those on the live streams, the YouTube channel live stream or the Facebook live stream, I believe you cannot change to open an additional website to go to menti.com and use the code which is mentioned here on the page, which is 326732. I can see a lot of replies coming in. We did get some before because we mentioned this link already.
Yeah, I have posted your link and the code in all the comment sections. In Facebook also it is there, in YouTube also there, in this chat box also. So I request all the participants to give your responses. And the link that is given, there is a code also given, and you will find a Mentimeter things. The code is 326732, visible on the screen here also. Go to menti.com and use the code 326732 and give your responses on this site. Yeah,
that's it. And you might find, if some of you are joining it now for the first time, I can actually give you the slide which is on the screen. Those who might have been on menti.com are still in the autonomous mode, perhaps. If you could restart menti.com, that would be great, because then you will also follow as everybody is filling in this poll. It's just a poll. It's just getting to know you. How do you feel about teaching remotely? And you have seen already some words on it, because as I said earlier, in about an hour or 2 hours before this talk, we've published this link to some of those who have a little bit problems with being there in person and perhaps just juggling devices. So you were able to go to menti.com. And this is amazing what's happening here in front of our eyes. We are actually getting a great deal of feedback. And if you would stick with adjectives and adverbs, please, then we could also get a good feeling of the adjectives and adverbs most used to describe our feeling. And we're now talking about feeling. Yeah, really, we want to hear how you feel about teaching remotely. Thank you ever so much. Allow me to continue. Your things will still be added, and this is a fantastic word cloud. What is most important for us too is, if I may ask you that, is how do your students feel about it? How do they feel of being taught remotely? And please, again, just use one word and use, if possible, adjectives and adverbs. And this is where we gauge a little bit of what you could. By the way, just I'm asking briefly. It seems that my webcam is not even on. I thought it was on. Is it on now? Sorry, I've been presenting with.
We are able to see you, Heikki. Yeah, your webcam is on. And
yeah,
this is very interesting cloud pictures that we are getting. The question are controlled by you. So you have to wait for the next question, but a very interesting graphic is being presented.
At the bottom right-hand side, we see the amount of people who have replied to this question. And usually you would take your mobile phone and add this question. So by watching the screen on top of that, you'll be able to gauge how everybody else feels. I mean, we're talking about the students. Do they like it? Are they excited? Are they happy? And this is exactly what you feel they are, yeah? Yes, they're challenged, but they're throughout positive, right? I mean, there could have been also something else like bored, passive, not punctual, not present, things like that. But no, you've actually describing it that they're quite excited. And to be honest, this reflects a little bit the feeling of so many out there who are teaching live online using Zoom, Google Meet, and so forth. They kind of feel a buzz. Allow me to go to the next skill. And this is the question Dilip would like to check out. And he's wonderful in that respect, that he's given me these questions for the Mentimeter. Okay, the writing skills. Name the tool, the app, or the platform which can be used in remote teaching for developing writing skills. And I will stop and pause a little bit my speaking right now for you to contemplate.
Quite interesting. Yeah. Just let me make an announcement for everybody that you have to wait on that page for the next question. The presenter will announce and then the next question will come. So do not go on pressing refresh page. It is controlled by the presenter. She will speak and then the next question will come and then give your responses. Blog is leading, obviously, it's right in the center, and very interesting way the things are presented.
I also like the presence of Google here. And WhatsApp isn't as big as I thought. There we go. So let's go to the next one. You can still, all your responses will still be documented, so you don't need to worry. Now is the next, speaking skills. Every one of you can actually add more than one response. I think I put in 3 responses. Thank you, Ketke. He says very interesting and innovative. Well, this is crowdsourcing, or what would you call it? Yes, Sherry, Matthew Philippos, that's correct. This is actually a paid version of Mentimeter, which allows me more slides. And it's a shame that Mentimeter only allows 2 slides for the very free version. It's a shame. It really is an awesome tool. And paying is quite dear. I mean, it's quite dear. It's quite expensive, I find. Thank you so much for your responses. Speaking skills. Google Meet, Zoom, YouTube, number 1. WhatsApp is also for speaking excellence. Skype, Zoom, Flipgrid. Oh, Flipgrid, interesting. So please add your last thoughts. We're going over to the next one, which is the writing skills. And no, sorry, listening skills. And you will be surprised that nothing is here on this page, except for 3, obviously. Listening skills, the results earlier, a few hours prior to this, as we're running this Mentimeter already, I had misspelled the title of this slide, and instead of listening skills, I wrote down writing skills, and so obviously we saw a repeat of answers. Apologies, and this is why I had to clear the slide with results. It's now very fresh for you. Thanks, Vaidehi. Wonderful. I am delighted that you are sharing your expertise, everyone. This is crowdsourcing, and these slides will help us later on to give you a little bit of an idea what to go for. Look at that, listening skills, YouTube, number 1, podcasts. WhatsApp is again very strong, that's lovely. TED Talks, I like that one. Audacity, Google Classroom. So 105 have answered here. I keep at it. As I'm pushing the next slide, I'm afraid you'll have to stop then doing it and have to go to the next one. But this is what we do. So reading skills, the last one of Dilip's, not the last one of Dilip's question. He had quite a number of questions, so you'll get more to that. But the last one of these essential tools. And yes, teaching online is not always about tools. Allow me to pause so that you can focus. Thank you very much. Kindle is very strong. Blogs again. So blogs are quite a good way of writing and reading skills. Awesome. Thank you so much. We're moving on, and it's 130 of you replying to these slides. We will see a few more as you are finishing your sentences. Thank you so much. So now this is just a usual poll. And with a poll, I would say like check mark what you like. What is the hurdle in using technology? I hope I have enabled multiple hurdles, or is it single ones? Can you give me in text chat feedback whether it's just a single choice or a multiple choice? Because I believe there could be electricity and low internet as well. Is it a single or multiple? It's a multiple. Okay, thanks, Shari. It's a multiple, excellent. Yeah, because there can be quite a few. And I hope you like my pictures. I'm sorry they're a bit small for the mobile phone, but you can zoom into the slides, and unfortunately this is Wow, internet seems to be the biggest, and low electricity at times. That brings me to the question which I've been asking earlier. You've attended this conference now yesterday and today amidst a cyclone, Nisarga, or what do you call it? Nisarga. Yeah. Some of you probably have lost electricity, and how else have you been? And this brings me to my next question here. What other hurdles, if you've answered the other hurdles except for internet connectivity and electricity, what other hurdles in using technology in your environment are there? Network. Do you mean with network, do you mean internet connectivity? Network. I kind of think of network as Wi-Fi. Or signal strength. Okay, thanks, Sherry. Network. Okay. Need to understand. It's not something we would say in English like that. We would always say internet. Internet. Bandwidth and internet bandwidth errors. Yeah. So we have them here. Oops. And scrolling. Yeah, scroll this up and down. No, oops, I can't seem to scroll it. It's an auto scroll, I'm afraid. Okay, thank you for the answers. Thank you so much. Be confident that whatever you're typing in right now is also will end up on this slide. Did you face, these are still Dilip's questions, did you face problems in presenting or attending this webinar? Well, the web conference, you can say, because it's yesterday and today. And no, I guess it's also good, but if you could perhaps write down whether you did face a problem, that would help us. If you didn't have a problem, it's good. I should have maybe used another way of yes or no. Okay, they all say no. Niti mentions that the apps which students are not well versed with are sometimes hurdles. That's lovely. We can add this to the answers. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to scroll this.
No problem at all. It was good. Yeah.
It's an auto scrolling. We have to wait. Now you're attending with ease. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, sorry. Next one. How are teachers ready to use technology? And Dilip, you have to explain a little bit how you meant this question, because I wouldn't necessarily know what you meant.
Yeah, for example, we can say that teacher readiness is how far pedagogically teachers are ready, how teachers are trained into using technology. I don't think most of the teachers have a problem of devices or internet. But the problem is pedagogically how to use, or training is still not there, or many teachers are not exposed to the technologies. So that is where the readiness on the part of teachers is maybe a problem there. So I would rate average. The younger group of the teachers are ready. The mid-age and the older people still they struggle a lot, but many are very good also. So on that ground, I say teachers' readiness here.
And as you're explaining this now, I actually am very happy that you said that, because this is also part of my presentation, a point that I'm making, the outlook, or what have we learned from COVID-19 now, and what will happen in the future. which I sort of seem to perceive this to happen. Oh, we don't know what's happening, but nobody predicted COVID. But no, there are some tendencies now going on. Thank you so much for answering this question. So you feel teachers are good, or they are ready to use technology. So, and I have observed, to be honest, with the presentations, the paper presentations, that I said, you, the audience, you're an amazingly techie audience, which again brings me to the next point in my presentation. So let's have a look. Did the conference make you change some of your own thinking about the use of technology for language teaching? And here, as opposed to use for technology for language teaching, you can also add CAL, computer-assisted language learning. So did the conference make you change some of your own thinking about the use of technology? And if so, what did you change? I'm pausing to let you reflect. This is Anya's question, by the way.
Interesting question. A very good question. Yeah.
So I'm not sure why it's not scrolling. Oh, this is a manual scroll. I've changed the way of settings. Okay. Here we have, yes, many new areas. It has led me towards blended learning. Technology has changed ELT, and it's a blessing in the true sense. It helps a lot. That sounds wonderful. Yes, to improve privacy regarding ICT tools. It enhances my positivity. Oh, I love that one. Oh, thank you so much for these answers, everyone. That's fantastic. I hope you agree that we could use some of these quotes of yours as statements of appreciation also on the website. You don't want us to do the, yeah, just write in the text chat, if not. Thank you so much. Ah, this is lovely. Absolutely helps to realize and rethink the new ways of teaching with the technology and much more. Thank you. Please close your sentence as we're moving on. Oh, I'm learning so much from you, everyone. Okay, we're moving on. Thank you so much. This is a simple yes and no answer, so it's quicker to do. Do you feel that you can use technology to support students' learning sufficiently for students to complete a long-term project? And Anya, feel free to also elaborate on your thoughts on this one as you've asked the question. If you want to add something to it, feel free.
So the blue is the yes, so that's quite a lot.
And tell us, what kind of long-term projects have you been thinking about? Is it a semester term, or is it a year or two, or even a research project leading to a PhD? What do you call long-term? And thank you for those who are writing in the text chat their answers. They will also be counted, worry not. And yeah. Anya, did you want to comment one more time what you had in mind, the long term?
You need to unmute your mic, Anya. Unmute your mic. Anya, you're not unmuted your mic. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't get the bar. I meant project a semester long.
Lovely. Thank you so much. So a semester long, everyone. Good, good, good. Okay, let's move on. This is where we come to a little bit my part of the presentation, but not before I actually thank you so much for your answers. And much more, I thank you for this fantastic input through the paper presentations, because it was all about teaching with COVID-19, and there was a lot of synchronous teaching. And of course, the topic of my talk is teaching live online, the new normal. Yeah, live online means synchronous. It means Google Meet. It means Zoom. It means Blackboard Collaborate, Adobe Connect, anything live online. And I would like to also present to you some thoughts of why live online is not always the best choice. It's not the non plus ultra. So allow me just to present, and thank you for these little, I've tried them first time. It's the thumbs up and the thumbs down of this, the 59 or 79. This just allows me to see how many are taking it. And we have also people on the live stream that are there. So we would like to start my presentation with a warm-up exercise, if you may do so, because I like to be relaxed. I like to have a lovely atmosphere in class and during my presentation. Now, you are all English teachers and you're pretty good with this, I'm pretty sure. Here is the exercise. Please write the sentence into the text chat, but do not send it off as of yet. Okay, so the sentence has to be grammatically correct. And don't post it yet. You have to write the sentence first and take your time writing it. So please write the sentence into the text chat, but don't post it yet. Do not send it off until I say so. And the challenge is every letter of this sentence has to start with the letter M. Oh dear. There has to be a complete sentence, Ketki. Ketki Pandya Nagar. A complete, accurate, and hold back. Don't just write a word. No. That's not the idea. You have to write a sentence, and please hold back writing the sentence until I say so. The letter M in every word. Hold back, everyone. Hold back. Hold back. They're typing like crazy in the text box. No, hold back, hold back. Everybody write the sentence.
Great.
This is a warm-up exercise for language learners. Okay, so you can post it now if you're ready. If you still want to write the sentence, feel free to keep writing it. There's no hurry. And so we have the first results. It's Mary making marked muscle. My mom made me a meal. Okay, a meal is missing, so that it has to be grammatically correct, my dear. My mother makes me merry is good. Maya meets Mira is also good, but too short. Mind-blowing exercise. Okay, that's not with MMM. My mind met meaningful men motivating me magna anonymously. Lovely, lovely. That is amazing. My mother makes me memorize much. That's great. My mummy means magical mirror. My mum makes me master. Oh, the mum is very popular today. Malinga may marry Manju, marking Mary, making May. Good, but not sensible. But my mother makes multiple meatballs monthly. Yum yum. I love that one. My mind made me mind-blowing. And monkey mummy milking. And Mentimeter makes magnificent. I like that one. You're welcome. Thank you so much. So this is just a fun exercise you could do with your students. And I call it warm-up because remember how many start their presentation and boom, they're in the subject. Yeah. Where do we have these warm-up exercises that we love in class, you know? And if it's just a smile and how was your weekend, you know? For some reason, live online, we don't. We seem to overlook that important factor. Okay, thank you for all the sentences. We'll mark them down as your. So, just a question to you, and here just at the top right-hand side, the thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't have a well, I don't have a poll for that one, but it's just to make you think. Okay, our learners, do you think they prefer school? And you think they do, yes, and so they miss school. And our learners, they miss the contact with other friends, you know. They miss the contact with the teacher. Here, if you could perhaps ask, go back to menti.com and give me an idea of how important you feel is now the live contact in a Google Meets or a live contact in Zoom or live contact via WhatsApp, yeah? The live contact in Adobe Connect or any other video conferencing tool. How important do you think or do you feel is it? And you can, out of 10, you can choose, you know, which one is which. So this is a rating scale. So if you could go to Mentimeter again and just briefly give me an idea, what you think is live online important and versus the asynchronous online. Now, I'm not sure, to be honest, what always to call this other, oh, I like the numbers. That's how many, actually, it's designed to give you an idea. So, okay. So 7, but many people feel like live online is important, and many also feel online on asynchronous and important. And I like that very much, that you place importance on both with a touch more the live online. But I can tell you one thing that I've learned is the burden of teaching during COVID. And again, sorry, there's no poll, it's just me presenting you something. What do you think the biggest burden of teaching during COVID has been? And I can tell you one thing, and this is what I've been observing. Okay. Oops, sorry, so I have to click in it. So sorry about this being so small. Okay, so here I'm reading it loud because it's so important. So the teachers have been asked to use synchronous communication tools like MS Teams, Adobe Connect, Zoom, Skype, Google Meets, and others. Okay, this in itself has been a challenge. I mean, it's really difficult to use those. But on top of that, I mean, the real burden of teaching during COVID really has been not life lessons. It has been the demands of doing the following. Okay, here we go. Be prepared. They are also set to know Web 2.0 tools, learning management systems, Moodle, Edmodo, Google Classroom. They're said to be familiar with social media, and I'm talking about the teachers. social media, weblogs, whiteboards, collaborative writing tools, weekly podcasts, screencasting software, tiny URLs, and web quests. The teachers are supposed to be knowing how to test. Quizlet tests, hot potatoes, specialized tools for tracking plagiarism, assessment testing, polling. Teachers are asked to know the web dangers about Zoom bombing, copyright, Creative Commons, netiquette, malware, fake news, ransomware, phishing, bullying, whitelisting and blacklisting. And they are supposed to know what these abbreviations stand for. BYOD. Do you know this? Does anybody know what BYOD stands for? VR, AR, RSS, GIFs, gamification, memes, OER, MOOCs, flipped learning, hashtags, NLP, and AI. And I almost forgot, teachers should also blog, post, social bookmark, have lots of followers on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and of course, create video tutorials which they post on their YouTube channel. And this is the burden. This is the real burden of teaching, to be honest. This is the real burden. And the burden is we're not only asked to teach live online, we are asked to do all of that and be familiar with it and know about it. And it's a world, I mean, honestly, how many, and I've certainly, and then from one day to the next. Oh, this is just asking too much, really, from the teachers, and I feel for it. And I've been watching this in Europe, in Asia, and in many places. I've looked around and asked teachers, how are you coping? How on earth are you coping? This is just asking too much. But we're not only asking this too much of our teachers, and I think I'll have to speed up this now. I'm afraid I can't talk about the pedagogy of online teaching at the University of Berlin. In a minute, I'll do that, if you're okay, if you permit me. But what I want to really get across is a couple of important things, practical things. And sorry, I'm going too fast now. This is the just advice for life online, and have a look at these two images. I found it so markedly different. And all I told this person, why don't you move the desk around so that you sit facing the door? But that was because the door meant people coming in, children coming in, the husband coming in. The door is always have to sort of face the door, or you should face the door. You shouldn't use the mobile phone and keep wobbling it. You should not have lights in the background. You should best change the desk around. That's what I mean. And there's a funny Twitter channel or Twitter on how the best webcam images. But that's just one thing I've observed. There's so many things I've observed, and I'm sorry about this. We talk about the pedagogy of live online teaching and learning. And here is one thought, is what we fail to do, we live online teachers. We stopped asking questions. And we used to do that in the classroom a lot, do you remember? In the classroom, we always ask questions. Every teacher asks questions. But live online, wow, then there's this silence. Apologies, I have not been watching the chat properly. Thank you. Yes, an important thought. Smile, warm-up exercises, energizers, be natural. And the one thing I've totally been missing, totally and utterly been missing, is the opportunity to invite guest speakers that now the teachers have available. And to be honest, I talked to a French teacher who uses MS Teams, and she has beautiful, beautiful teaching material that she self-created. Very creative person, beautiful, colorful, really fantastic. But the thought to invite into a French lesson, a French native speaker didn't even occur to her in her lesson. Don't speak as loud as the classroom. But that's simply because I have heard quite a few paper presentations yesterday and today, and for some reason the teachers, they tend to be really loud. And they always speak as if they had to be heard on the other side of the ocean for some reason. That is just funny. It's psychological, honestly. So yes, you don't have to shout. There's a microphone and it has to be a good one. Thank you so much. Now I'm getting near to the end, and I'm going to skip a couple of things. This is a question: is how messy are the results of your students? And will you believe it? This was a game that a lecturer played in Berlin. For 3 hours, students were engaged to think how they could create biotopes and where the dangers could come from in nature and so forth. And yes, it was messy, but it was an amazing game, to be honest. An amazing game. 3 hours of engagement. So, and this is now one thing very important. If Dilip or Vance could sort of paste this link into the text chat, I'd really appreciate it. I have to introduce you to a great thinker, Vijay Govindarajan. Who knows this one? He's called Vijay. He's got a website, Wikipedia page. He has recently presented for Harvard in a webinar, and I didn't even know much about Vijay. VG, he's called VG for some reason. VG, I didn't know much about him, but the webinar left me speechless, absolutely speechless. And I really encourage you to not only go to his Wikipedia page, and I'm looking at the text chat, if you could also paste the link to that webinar, because the one thing VG stands for is, he says about India, or his on the Wikipedia page, which I could show you, it says, and I must read this to you, I'm not sure whether you can see this now. He is famous for reverse innovation. He says, historically, corporations innovated in a rich country like the US and sold those products in a poor country like India. Reverse innovation is doing exactly the opposite. It's about innovating in a poor country like India and selling those products in rich countries like the US. VG's research has focused on questions like, what are the conditions in which reverse innovation presents a big opportunity? Isn't that wonderful? I love that. And he has, as I said in this webinar, he talks about that India would really need 80,000 universities, brick and mortar universities. And that he says, there's no way on earth that can be done. No resources, no teachers, no brick and mortar. And he said, but what India needs is digital skill sets. And this can be taught online. So here you go. And here I am at the end of my presentation, and I'm sorry to sort of leave this on. I need to mention to you something else still. But here, this is the end thought. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. But now the final thought. First of all, I wanted to mention Dr. Vishal Pandya, who presented yesterday. No, was it this morning? This morning, first thing, he presented a paper presentation. And he left one thought, which I really liked. I like that sentence that he said, there's a lot of teaching going on in life online, you know, since COVID. There's a lot of teaching going on, but not a lot of learning. And when did we teachers forget about this vital element? We engaged in a really long, 6-7 emails long discussion because I wanted to have his, just see his slides, which kind of we didn't see. And it was so interesting. And I like so many of his thoughts about. But the one thing he says, yes, life online is not always advantageous. Apologies. Please read what he says. I think I just noticed that the last sentence is cut off. But yes, this is what he does. He says it's not, life online is not the panacea of online. There's too many technical issues, right? And there's a lot of interference by some people back in home, the background, the family, other things going on. But it's the teachers who are actually the ones who are the innovators in that field. And the last thought I want to give by going to the last page is one thought again. In future, looking back at COVID-19, we were thrown into the deep end. People are coming out of it now, people are going back to schools. But now the educational industry has, first of all, had a first shock and then learned quite a lot, yeah, and found that students are rather prone to learning online. And what will happen now, probably, is in the wake of re-energizing the industries and everything, so upscaling from the lockdown, upscaling again, very likely we will see a lot of money being poured into innovating teachers, upskilling teachers, getting teachers to be ready and prepared for the next pandemic, giving teachers the skill sets, giving teachers the resources to do that, to learn how to teach live online or to learn how to teach online. I believe in that very strongly. I believe there will be a big wave of investment into our skills. And with that, I'm concluding my thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Heikki. That was really interesting. And Menti.com has made it really interesting presentations. It was very well engrossing to the participants throughout all the screens, and your feedback along with that made it really wonderful. It was a very unique idea for making a presentation also. If there are any questions, anybody would like to raise any questions or any doubts or any queries, then you can come online also. You can unmute your mic and you can ask questions. I have not seen any specific questions in the chat, so
there's actually
address question. Lots of comments coming on. It's difficult to address. Yeah.
Thank you. And Dilip, can I also just mention that you've been so wonderful to support this initiative with Mentimeter, despite your busyness in the last 2 days. You've been there from morning to late, and it's been for you a lot of background administration work with getting all the presenters, and they're anxious and they're writing emails. You must have gone crazy with emails.
That's true. There's a constant email, and I have given my WhatsApp message number also. So lots of WhatsApp messages.
Yeah, I can imagine. You've done a fantastic job, Dilip. Awesome, honestly. What would we do without you?
It was good to have all three of you, and wonderful to have it. And I hope all the participants also got benefited from this interaction. Any questions? If there are any, if anybody wants to unmute a mic and ask, we can have 1 or 2 questions. We have 5 minutes there. Okay, fine. So then may I request if Vance and Anya Lian is there to come online for a while to put on their mic if they are present there. I think Vance also had some work. So if you are there, please, you can come here. So Heikki, we are very thankful to you for sparing your time. Yeah, Anya is there. Yeah. Very thankful to you, Anya, also for.
Oh, there was a question. Well, there was a question in text that we missed.
Yes, Nikhil, you have any question? Yeah.
No,
Actually, I have no question, but I am very sincerely. Hello, may I,
Yeah,
may I
you're
speak
audible.
now?
Please go on. You're audible.
Okay, I have no question, sir. Actually, I just wanted to express my sincere gratitude to Helen ma'am and you. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And Alpa Ponda had a beautiful question, which perhaps the audience can help also answer, because it's a very specific question. It says, while someone is teaching or discussing any art, like theater or drama or singing or other arts, teaching art is a heart-to-heart connection. So will it be possible online, and would this be seamless? Will it be engaging learners, and how? So if you have any idea about this, please feel free to give Alpa Ponda the answer to this question. If not, anybody else that might chip in?
I'm not an art teacher, but I think the principles are the same, which is interaction, a discussion enabling systematization of ideas, playing with ideas, and then move on and doing crazy things.
Lovely.
Okay, then.
Okay.
Thanks again yeah. Are you reading any questions? Heikki, you want to help? To say anything?
But there's been some answers to that question in text chat by the colleagues, which is lovely. And other than that, I can't seem to see any questions at the moment. There's still.
Yeah, there is a series of chats now. People are thanking and leaving, so it's very difficult to trace the specific
It was
question.
a long day.
On behalf of our university, our department, we are very thankful to all three of you for sparing your valuable time. Heikki there in the morning, Vance in the afternoon, and Anya in the evening. Yeah, difficult to manage the time slot, but it was wonderful to have in this afternoon time all of you together. Thanks a lot for sharing your valuable ideas and time with all of us.
Thank you, Dilip. That was magnificent. It was a magnificent event. I can only congratulate you. I don't think I've ever done anything like that. So many people and so well organized. And it wasn't just this webcast here. It's what you did on Facebook. I haven't seen the YouTube, but what you did on Facebook with every lecture being there, available to view. I just don't know how you did that. I've got to find out. It's just, the whole thing was just amazing. And also for me, from Australia, it was so good to see the teachers from India, to see the struggles they have, to see the ideas they have, to see their commitment, and especially the spirit of it. You know, we just get on and we just do amazing things and we learn. It was just lovely to meet so many teachers. Thanks
for your comments. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It was very good to see that all three of you were observing what people are doing here. Yesterday also you were there. Today also all three of you were there to see how they are presenting and how things are going on. Yeah. So thanks all of you. I am very thankful to all the volunteer students who anchored various sessions here. I'm thankful to everybody who became a part of this, all the participants, all the paper presenters, and all the plenary speakers there. We are going offline now. Thanks a lot to everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Yeah.